So you want to go to 5 million? Let's map out what that looks like. And when you start mapping it out on their job average and how many jobs that's going to take a week, and all of a sudden their eyes get big and round, they're like, oh crap, like that's what it's going to take. Yeah, that's what it's going to take. And
hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Service Hustle. I'm your host, Jonathan Bannister, and today I'm with Gerritt Bake, and Gerritt is going to be joining us, and he's going to be sharing his story from law enforcement to contractor consultant here. And Gerritt comes from the American Contractor Network. Gerritt, thank you for being here.
thanks, my man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so we do share the same background of former law enforcement. Where were you a police officer?
In the Phoenix area.
Okay. How long did you do that?
Almost 20 years. So just shy of 20 years.
What years?
I retired in 17. So
Okay.
whatever backwards from that would be.
Yeah, let's see. I got out, my last year was 2014, I think, 14 or 15 things. And then, and it's like, I remember coming in, and I came in 2009, so I didn't do it very long, but like when I was coming in, the guys that were leaving were like looking at me going, have fun. I don't envy you at all. And I'm like, man, it was so disheartening. I was like, man, why are they saying this? I'd go home and tell my wife, like, I've looked forward to being a police officer, and like all the old guys about to leave are telling me like, run. And I'm like, this is not cool. And then by the time we got into 2012, 13, people, were shooting cops for fun, and that was kind of the target on their back. And I was like, we had children 2012, 13, 14. I had little boys, and my wife, looking at me one day, and she's like, you make no money and they're shooting cops for fun, and you got these little boys that aren't going to have a dad. Like, what's your plan? And I was like, all right, well, because I knew it wasn't going to be a forever job for me. So that was also the struggle, because I enjoyed working interdiction, and I enjoyed the catching bad guys and getting dope off the street. And then I was like, I'd look down the hallway at the brass, and I'm like, I never want to be those guys. So because I didn't want, I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to waste 10 or 15 years here, and then I'm going to go make a career change. So I was like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah. So, yeah. And you're dead on. It's really a thankless career now, and there are people that love you, but there's a whole lot of people that hate you. And it's sad to be able, or to have to walk those streets and, drive around and not really know if somebody's going to, just try and take you out.
Yeah. So I've had it heavy on my heart for really ever since I got into business for myself, which was 2015. I mean, I transitioned like immediately, and I've had it heavy on my heart that I want to start some kind of organization or something where, because I think the biggest problem that's out there, I know so many people that want to leave law enforcement, but because of the, their pension and everything else, like everything's tied up in it. And if they're like, what am I going to do? And then, so if they did have something they could go, they would leave. And for those people, I don't want them to feel stuck or have to put another 8 or 10 years in just because. And I was like, there's got to be something out there. So yeah, maybe we can talk about something. And
always an opportunity. There's a guy out of, I think, Minnesota. Mike the Cop is what he goes off. I don't know if you know him.
Okay.
But he was a police officer up there, and then he got into real estate, and so he retired a few years back. And now his big thing is helping first responders get into that space. But even working as a cop, I had a couple of contracting businesses. I had a window washing business for a little while. Then I had a landscaping business. We were flipping houses. So we were doing stuff. And I think that the trades is like a great place for cops to land. Really good place.
I agree. Well, yeah, man, let's talk about the business. Let's talk about American Contractor Network. How did it come to be? And how did you make the transition from, that you wanted to go into this space from law enforcement?
Yeah, this is a unique one that of course you understand. Not a lot of people do, right? And police work, at some point, police work is going to drive you in one of two directions, right? And that direction, the first one is like the big ego, the big, belt on, like I got a big badge, look at me. And you start taking advantage of people. and the other one is that the business, kind of starts taking advantage of you, right?
Mhm.
And I kind of got stuck in thinking that I was that person, the police officer, that was who I was, and so started to dominate every aspect of my life, right? And you remember, as a police officer, like there's no like level playing field, right? We're always looking for the advantage. We're always looking for, a way to get a leg up. And I remember trying to take those same tactics home. Much like you, when I first started, my first son was born, and then my daughter, and then my other son. And it was really like I'll ask you to do something. If you don't, I'll tell you to do something. If you don't, I'll make you do something. Man, what a horrible way to be, husband and father. And of course, you don't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
And it really, affected me. It affected my relationship. And we got to this point where, the marriage is on the rocks. I'd moved out, told wife I wanted a divorce, but everything at work was hunky dory, man. I'm getting, officer of the year, these accolades and promotions, and everything's going good. And so it was like this dichotomy, and I was kind of stuck in the middle. And, I had to get to that point where I'd realize, like, okay, like, what do you really want out of life?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I look at my gear now, it sits in a box in the garage. It's blood, sweat, and tears, and near misses, but that's where it sits. And I had to choose family, or I had to choose that career, and ultimately, chose family.
So what was that like? You made the decision to step away from law enforcement, and then was it, I think you told me you did some consulting first.
Yeah, I kind of stumbled into some consulting. I had a couple buddies that were general contractors, and they're like, "Hey, come help us with our business." And I was like, "Bro, I'm not picking up a hammer. Like those days are gone, right? A little too old for that." And they're like, "No, no, no, come teach us, some stuff." Well, I'd gotten a degree in business management working as a cop, which doesn't make sense. Should have been criminal justice or something like that. But I've always loved business, and obviously been involved in business. And so I kind of took some of those principles that we learned, in that area, and started applying them to business, right? A lot of structure, a lot of accountability, a lot of making sure that people were doing the thing that they said they were going to do, process improvement, things like that. And these guys had grown up in the trades, swinging a hammer, and they were really good at the trade, but they sucked at running a business. And so, a little bit of trial and error, but we kind of got things locked in for them, and their businesses started to take off. And I really enjoyed it because I could go in for a few hours a week and, hey, do this, let's fix that, and then go home. And I didn't have to worry about, getting followed or getting shot. So it was working out great for me. And that's kind of how things took off.
So what do you think, looking back then and then today? Like, obviously you've now been doing this for almost 10 years, 7 years.
7 years. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you first started the consulting to where you are now, and obviously you've probably worked with hundreds of companies since then. And so you've, been able to trial and error, and you've been in a sandbox with a lot of people. What would you have said then was some of the biggest issues that you were seeing with contractors? And then what are like the actual, say, top 3 biggest problems that for sure are consistently the issues?
That is a really, really good question. And not a lot of people ask that, right? Now, the good thing about what you asked, I think, is like, it was, what changed was not what the issue was. What changed was my perception of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so my perception when I first started was, hey, you need more leads, right? And you need to close more deals, and you need to make sure you get the work done. Right. Like, just a very fundamental, knowledge of running a business. And looking at it now, 7 years later, if you ask me, okay, what's the most important thing that goes into running a successful contracting business? I will tell you 100% every single time, it is the owner, right? And it's the mindset and the belief that that owner has. Because you know this as well as I do, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And a
Yeah.
lot of these guys grow up, poor neighborhoods, or, broken families, or addiction, or any of a number of things. And the trades and being a contractor is kind of an escape. It's this out, right? And now they realize, hey, I'm pretty good at landscaping or roofing or, doing electrical work. I think I can do this on my own. And so they start, chucking a truck, and they're out rolling around and doing some work. And they get to a point where they're semi-successful, but they can't seem to escape the thing that's keeping them back. And it's their mindset, right? I grew up poor. I'll always be poor. I
Yeah.
grew up broken. I'll always be broken. I'll never learn how to actually sell $100,000 job. I'll never learn how to do $100,000 job. And so the biggest thing that I deal with day in and day out with contractors is that belief.
So you said whether you can or you can't, it's like all in the belief, right? And so when you go in and you start working with someone and you're saying that, you think single-handedly the owner of that business is going to be the foundation behind everything else around it. What do you do? Like, what is your process to understand who you're working with? And then, obviously you probably got a whole, different arsenal of tools you're going to use to maybe fix that. But like, what are you asking to truly see what their mindset is?
Yeah, good question. There's a few different things that we ask, and it always starts with, where do you want to go? Like, what do you want out of this thing?
Which can go
Because
anywhere, right? Because
right.
I mean, in marketing world, hey, what are your goals the next 12 months? Oh, we're at 3 million. We want to go to 6. We're at 4. We want to go to 7. Like, they all have this perfectly round number. They have no effing clue how they're going to get there. And so when I hear, I heard it for years. Right now, we have sales guys that hear the same stuff, and it's like when we hear that, those are red flags. That I'd rather hear we're at 4. We want to go to 4.7, or we want to go to 5.1. Like, there's a number that makes sense because they've actually forecasted and planned for. But otherwise, they go, yeah, we're at 3. We want to go to 6. Like, oh, really? Where'd that number come from? And so I'm sure a lot of people tell you easily where they want to go. And then you really got to start digging through the bullshit, I think, probably at that point.
Yep, you're dead on there. And that's the thing is, like, when you look at it, and you and I both have this because we were cops, like, it's the bullshit meter, right? Like,
Yep.
and you don't want to call somebody out on it, but you probably have a very similar process. And the way that I call people out is very simply by, like, okay, so you want to go to 5 million? Let's map out what that looks like. And when you start mapping it out on their job average and how many jobs that's going to take a week, and all of a sudden their eyes get big and round, they're like, oh crap, like, that's what it's going to take. Yeah, that's what it's going to take. And so going back to a lot of the fundamental stuff that we learned, in the police academy. Well, how do you hit a target? Well, first you got to identify the target, right? Then you got to have your sights on the target. You got to aim for the target. And then it's all the actions that go into hitting that target: side
Yep.
alignment, breath control, making sure you're smooth trigger pull, like all of those things. And so I literally just strip it back down to the fundamentals, right? I don't care what your target is. And this sounds kind of weird. I don't care what your target is. What I care is it a target that matters to you and that's realistic that you can hit.
Yep.
That's what I care about. Because at the end of the day, success or failure is on you. My job is to hold you accountable. My job is to give you the tools that you need, the resources, if you will. But at the end of the day, I can't pick up the phone. At the end of the day, I can't write out that estimate. At the end of the day, I ain't swinging that hammer.
Yeah.
So success or failure is 100% dependent on you.
Yeah. I mean, we've added so many different tools or solutions or partnerships with what we're doing with digital marketing, because I got to the place where I'm like, no, like, it's not for this particular client. It's not the results. It's not the return on investment. Like, this is strictly an operational problem. This is a lead handling problem. This is a financial planning and bookkeeping problem. Like, there's so many. And so I was like, what I've got to do something to be able to help analyze where this person really is. Because if I simply say, where are you at today? Where do you want to be tomorrow in the next 12 months? I want to start looking where you've been, and I want to dig into that, because where you've been is going to tell me a whole lot. I want to look at the P&L. I want to lift up the hood. I want to see what I want to ask you what your average ticket is on replacement. I don't want to, it's 15,000. I'm like, oh, that's a cool round number. Like, let's see what it really is. Let's dig into Service Titan and take a look. And when you start doing that, like, you start getting through the bullshit a little bit. And so I think there's a big ego problem. Like, contractors in general, it's typically a male dominant industry. And they all, like, a lot of people are embarrassed or ashamed maybe that they don't run this perfect, well-oiled machine. Right. But it's like, I think when you're inviting people in to help you, whether it's a marketing company, a business coach, a financial coach, a CFO, like you got to be real, and you got to be real into, expose yourself and be a little vulnerable. But I think it's a problem for sure.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head there, right? It's the more real you are, the more likely you are to find a solution to the problem, right? Like you can bury them in leads, but if leads isn't their problem, like then what's the point, right? It's like you, whether it's financial, like you mentioned, or it's operational, or it's leadership, or it's, marketing or sales or something, you got to be real on where things are at. Otherwise you'll never get to where you want to get to.
So I want to talk about bringing structure and organization to a business. But first, since we're talking about marketing for a second, I was watching a video of yours earlier, and I think it was pretty recent. And you mentioned you were talking about marketing, and there was a part on there where you said getting people's attention is the most important thing when it comes to marketing. So let's talk about that a little bit. I loved it, right? Because this is what I'm screaming. I think it's like the Eminem approach, like he knows how to get eyeballs, whether he's pissing people off or what. And I feel like even in small business, like I tell people impressions win the marketing game every time. And so if you can get more eyeballs on your shit than your competitors, you're going to win. And I think the eyeballs need to come from every channel there is out there. But if you get more of those eyeballs, you win.
Yeah. Amen. I couldn't have said it any better. I have a friend of mine who runs a business out of Jersey. Joseph Hughes is his name. The business is called Contractor Dynamics, and he teaches contractors, mostly roofing contractors, how to, do their own marketing, if you will.
Okay.
But Joseph has this phrase, it's called 5 Mile Famous. So I got to give him credit for that, right? 5 Mile Famous. And he goes, you can build a very successful multi-million-dollar contracting business if you just become 5 Mile Famous, right? So the concept basically is what you just said. How do you get more impressions, more eyeballs, more people to know who you are, right? And then when they think of solution to problem, they're going to give you a buzz. Right. And too many contractors think that social media is either, hey, let's stroke a check for 10K and see what Mark Zuckerberg, builds with it, another bunker in Hawaii or whatever. Or they just sit there and like stock Facebook groups, and someone says, I need a concrete guy, or I need an electrician or a plumber. And they're the 75th out of 922 people who respond. And they somehow expect that is going to grow their business. Right. And really it's an understanding of like, it's not just like eyeballs, but it's the right eyeballs, right? So one of the things, and I'm sure you talk about this as well, one of the things we always start off with when we're talking about marketing is an understanding of not what you do, but who do you want to do it for? Because we could talk building a roof all day long, but are you building it for a homeowner? Are you building it for a contractor? Are you doing it for the government? Is it an industrial project? Is it a roll roof, shingle? Like we can open up Pandora's box just with roofing. And it's the same with every trade. And so it's an understanding, okay, what do I do? Who do I do it for? And with those two pieces of information, now you can get much more specific and say, okay, where do I need to go to find these people? Right? If you're dealing with a homeowner, then you probably shouldn't be out, trying to knock as many doors as possible. Especially if you're a one-man band. Why? Because it's you, bro. Right. Like it's just you. So you can go to groups where there's already homeowners congregated, right? So if you're a plumber, for example, well, how do you find whatever local city you're in, whoever runs that Facebook group, and say, hey, look, I want to become the expert for free of any plumbing questions inside of your group, right? And you start to inject yourself as being the person, right? So leveraging other people's audience to become that person. Because it's like you said, if you think sheer numbers, right? So like, let's take Phoenix, for example. Phoenix metro area has 5 million people living in there. 5 million, right? If you're a plumber, let's just say in Mesa, in the East Valley, okay? You're a plumber and you go to Facebook and you see you have 2,332 friends on Facebook, right? What proportion of 5 million is 2,332? Like it ain't much. Not only that, here's the news brief for you. Facebook only shows your posts to anywhere between 10 to 25% of your followers. That's it. Right.
I've seen that number even lower.
Yeah. On average, it is. Yeah. So you look at that and you say, okay, well, I posted on Facebook. Why isn't my phone ringing? Well,
Right.
that's because 300 people saw your thing. And by see your thing, we know it was just them scrolling past it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really a game of attention.
Yeah. We almost force all of our clients to do, like, they have to do video, whether we do it or they get it done, we'll tell them what to go shoot, because I want to create as much top of funnel and middle funnel awareness of who that business is and why they're so great, and who their family is and what the community means, what the culture is like. And I tell them, you're not going to get any leads from this, because this is nothing more than branding, but we're going to funnel the right people down at the bottom. And guess what? It may only be a handful of people, but that's the only people that need to see your ads and offers, because they don't know who the hell you are and they don't need you, especially when it comes to social media. If their house is flooding with water, they're not going to Facebook to look for a contractor. They're going to Google, and there's a different place for that. And, but they need to get to know you on social media of, why they want to do business with you, something that's going to make it stick, whether it's funny, serious, pull at the heartstrings, whatever. But if you think you're just going to put an offer out there of, a new air conditioning system for, I don't give a shit if you put it's $10 a month, like, you're just racing to the bottom, and they still don't need you. And they're just going to be tire kickers out there. Like, really, can you do it for $8 a month? Because 10's a little too much, or they can't get financed anyway. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Right. And it really is like, and this is what I love about, what you do. It's a strategy behind it, right? It's not like, let's just throw everything up against the wall and see what sticks. Like, there's a strategy behind it, and it's not an overnight thing. Like, it's a long-term thing. So you want to be known as the plumbing company, the HVAC company, the electrician. Cool. What are you doing to become known as that? Right. And it's a multi-channel approach, right? Videos. Come on. It's 2024. If you're still too scared to get in front of a camera, then you probably shouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Well, man, I'll hear them say, we got 800 reviews, and then I'll look up some of their competitors. Like, well, you've got a competitor that's got 6,000 reviews. So like, that means nothing. I'm congratulations on your success with 800 reviews, but how many of those have you turned into a video testimonial? How many videos do you have of your customers saying how amazing the experience was, and walking through your future customers of what you're going to do? I'm like, look, you're at a time where you're never going to see social media be anything like Facebook again. It's going to be video or VR or something more whacked out. So I'm like, you better get the camera rolling quickly, and you better tell that story. And it blows my mind how many people are yet to jump into the video side, or they're not embracing YouTube ads or something like that. I'm just going like, I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah. And it's true. And part of it, of course, is fear, right? We fear the unknown. We fear what we don't understand.
Yeah.
But the only way to get over fear is get some knowledge and then take some action. Right. And this is where, again, your business comes into play, is like, hey, listen, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to figure it out on your own. We'll help you get a strategy. But at the end of the day, we can't deploy that strategy. Like, you're the one that has to deploy. I can't shoot your videos for you. You got to shoot the videos. We'll deploy them, but you got to shoot them. Right. So it's really an understanding of like, listen, it's just like when you started your business. Did you know what you were doing? Probably not. Right. How'd you figure it out? Trial and error. Right.
Yeah.
How do you get good in front of a camera? Trial and error. Right. Yeah. Like, even my studio, I have lights in 3 different locations. I have the backdrop and I have the mic. Why? Because through trial and error, I realized my 2 biggest issues are light and sound. So how do I eliminate those issues?
Yeah.
Get that taken care of. Right. Just trial and error. It's just a game.
So let's talk about you bringing structure to the operation. So let's talk about some of the key flaws and challenges that you see in people's operations. And then what are some of the first things you want to do to get that just overall consistent structure?
Yeah, good question. The first thing we always look at and when I sit down with a new contractor is we always lay out, and I don't call it their org chart, their organizational chart. I call it an accountability chart. Because at the end of the day, whether you call it a construction manager, a project manager, a general manager is irrelevant. What matters is the roles and responsibilities inside of there. This morning I was meeting with one of the remodeling contractors I work with, and he's doing about 3.5 million a year. So not bad. But then when we start to get down into brass tacks and I lay out his organization chart, or his accountability chart, excuse me, he realizes that he's got 5 salespeople and a sales manager. 2 project managers, and then 1 person running accounting and his finances, right? It's like,
he's got a little overhead.
yeah, your overhead's way higher than it needs to be. And of course there's pushback, but then when we look down at the numbers, what he realizes is 75% of the jobs that are closing are because of him. They're not because of his 5 salespeople, right? So
Wow.
it's like, we got to get rid of some of those folks. So the first thing they always do is again, that, and you know this, just like with running Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, the data tells you what's working and what's not working, right? And what are you going to do with that data? And so I always like to lay it all out, and we kind of break things up in the leadership, marketing and sales, operations, finance, and then teams. And I ask a very simple question: who's in charge of this area? Who's in charge of this area? Who's in charge of this area? And oddly enough, the majority of the time, the business owner, even though he's hired somebody for that role or that position or that responsibility, is still running the show.
Yep.
Right. And it's like we were talking about earlier, right? If you don't have systems, if you don't have processes, you are the system, you are the process, and if you're unsure if you're the process, if you're unsure if you're the system, there's a very simple question you can ask yourself. If I was to take 2 weeks off right now from my business.
I was about to tell you whatever you're going to say. I was going to say, because I didn't know what, and I was going to say, or you could take 2 weeks off your business, and when it's completely gone and crashed, then you'll know you are the system. But yeah, go ahead, please give the solution here.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, if you can ask yourself, like, hey, if I took 2 weeks off, what would happen to the business? If the answer is anything other than it would be a smooth running machine, you're the system.
But I'm going to tell you, I almost have to tell people, because it's that ego thing, Gerritt. I'm telling you, like, I've challenged some clients before, and I'm going, I tell you what, I'm telling you, you've got problems, and and I would love to recommend some people to help you here, because I'm not your business coach, and I'm not your CFO. I'm not your EOS guru, but I will tell you, do me a favor and schedule a 2-week trip to Europe, and you let me know what the business is like when you get back. And I want you to completely unplug, and it's like only 911 emergency calls where they're able to reach you. And you let me know. And I'm just going to tell you that your business will not run. Like, it will have major, like, not even roadblocks, like catastrophic destruction is going to take place. And I said, that's a problem. And if you can't admit that to yourself, you are the problem. And most don't want to. Most just because most really feel that it's not as bad as it is. But it's the accountability on the team that they just won't say, like, man, you're paying this guy $120,000 to be your project manager or your service manager, whatever. And it's like, but what is he responsible for? Why are you doing that when that's his job title? Well, I mean, I'm just better at doing it. And I'm like you're either dumb or this dude's a genius because he's making 120 and not having any responsibility over his head.
Yeah. Yep. Dead on. I was meeting with a home builder this afternoon, and that was literally the exact conversation. A project manager that he has that has been with him for 12 years. And he goes, I almost fired him today. And I was like, well, how many times have you almost fired him? Like, he's not the guy for you. When there's a problem, what happens? He calls me. Oh, so is he your project manager or is he an assistant? Like, you're paying him over $100,000 a year to do what? To call you when there's a problem? Like, hey, why don't you just pay me? I'll call you.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You know what I mean? So these guys don't understand. You're right. Ego is the biggest, issue inside of there. But I always take it back to them and say, like, well, what's the purpose of your business then? You say it's money. It ain't money. It's freedom. It's the freedom that the money provides.
Yeah.
And if you're still stuck in the business, you don't have freedom. What you have is a very expensive job. That's what you have.
Yeah, you're right. So what do you do? Do y'all practice EOS? Is that, or some methodology of it?
Yeah, some methodology, and we're, kind of behind the curtains, we're building our own version of a business operating system exclusively for contractors. But yes, you need some business operating system.
Yep.
Ours is called the Build Pro system. I don't care if it's EOS, if it's Scale Up, if it's Empire, if it's whatever it is, You need structure and organization in your business, right? Otherwise you become like that Spider-Man meme where they're all the Spider-Man like pointing at each other.
Yeah.
Like it was you, it was you, it was you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what ends up happening.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I've seen those conversations get a little wild where when you start calling people out on like, what is your responsibility? What is your responsibility? And when when they all do start pointing, obviously the owner starts turning, different shades of red. And it's like, come on, dude, you knew this, right? Like, don't play dumb. Now you're just seeing it out loud where people aren't owning up to. So like, what do you do? What is your next step? What is y'all's process on when you're trying to kind of identify and make people kind of own up on the accountability side of what their role is?
Yeah, good question. The first thing that we do, when we onboard a new client, the first thing that I do is I have them read 2 books. And first of all, if they don't read it, it tells me exactly where their head is at, right? But I have them read 2 books. The first one is called The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Yep.
You probably read it. It's a great book, right? It helps people understand that it's not about all the things you do. It's about the one thing that you do, right?
Yep.
And focusing on one thing at a time. The second one is called Leadership and Self-Deception. It's by the Arbinger Institute. And that is 100% an understanding that every success and failure inside of your business is your responsibility, right? And we're in a culture, and I know you and I are probably on the same page on this. We're in a culture right now where it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you grew up a certain way. It's not your fault that you were drinking and driving. It's not your fault that, you embezzled that money. It's not everything's not your fault, right?
Because you don't understand, Gerritt, right?
Yeah.
You don't understand.
You don't get it.
I get stressed. I have anxiety. I'm like, well, we all do. I have anxiety when payroll comes, right? Like I get it. I get it sometimes as well.
Yeah. And so we blame everyone and everything else. The problem with that is if you can't own the problem, you can't solve the problem. And until you learn to own problems, you'll never improve whatever it is that you're trying to improve. Your team, your leadership, your marketing, your sales, whatever, right? It's not Zuckerberg's fault that your Facebook ads suck.
Yeah.
It's your fault, right? Now, the good thing again is you can do something about it. You can go shoot another video. You can put another, piece of creative up there. You can, change the audience, right? But if it's somebody else's fault, you can never do anything about it, right? So the first thing is always like ownership inside of that.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing is when you can own the fact that it's your business, it does something to your mindset. And you no longer expect your people to make the decisions. Okay. Now, that sounds a little weird, but stay with me for a second. Every decision that's made inside of the business when you're the owner is your responsibility. Okay. So that means that your job is to put the right people in the right seat that have clarity around their roles and responsibilities and not turn around and walk away and expect them to do it. Your job is to give them the tools and the resources they need and then to hold them accountable. And that's the part that people miss. Why? Because they don't like to be held accountable themselves. So how do I expect to hold anyone else accountable? That's why I said everything is always traced back to the owner. Everything. There was an electrician I was working with out of Idaho for a while. His business was blowing up. I think he'd grown from 2.5 to 4 in a year. Like he's like, I got to hire a salesperson. I'm like, okay, cool. So we went through our process of, hiring the right person, and he gets this guy in there, tells him what he needs to do, and basically turned his back on him. Now we were tracking numbers on my end, like we do. And about 2 weeks in, I was like, hey, there's a problem here. Like, well, our sales are dropping a little bit. Like, what's going on? Oh, no big deal. No this. Well, this went on for 90 days. 90 days, he shows up for a meeting and he goes, I think I might have to close the doors. And I was like, okay, I'm missing something here. What happened? He goes, my sales guy hasn't sold anything for the last 90 days. 90 days. Like imagine what that would do to your business. No sales for 90 days.
Yeah.
It would kill it. So luckily he was able to survive. But the point is your job is not just to find the right person for the right seat. Your job is to hold them accountable. Because whether they succeed or not, ultimately is your responsibility. If I have a person who's failing in a role, it's one of 2 problems. It's a process problem or it's a person problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to check process first. If my process isn't locked in, I'm going to lock it in. If my process is locked in, it's a person problem. It's just like baseball. 1, 2, and 3 strikes, you're out. Right? Like, I take the emotion out of it. I love you, man. You're a great guy. Best marketer ever.
Yep.
If we don't get this stuff turned around, you're not going to be the best marketer for me.
Yep.
Period. Right? And so it's really, again, I think the biggest concept inside of this whole thing, whether again, it's marketing, it's operations, it's sales, whatever it is, the biggest thing is an understanding that the success or failure of your business is your responsibility.
What was the
Right?
quote you said about until they can own it, they can't fix it? What'd you say?
Yeah. So, if you're looking at, and I don't remember the exact words, sometimes I get in this like low flow and it just goes.
Uh-huh. It was good, but it was basically until you can own it and accept it, it's
If you
never going
can't
to change.
own it, you can't fix it.
Okay.
Right? Like, if I don't own something, I can't fix it. The car, right? It's on my car. Well, I can't fix it. Like, it's on my car, right? It's not my house. It's not my whatever. So your project manager who screwed up on a job site, is it his responsibility? To a point, but ultimately it's yours. Why? Because you put him in that position.
Yeah.
And you either gave him clear roles and responsibilities and held him accountable, or you didn't. Either way, it's your responsibility. What are you going to do?
Let's talk about the sales. Since you were just talking about sales guy, didn't sell anything for 90 days. Dude almost had to lock his doors up. When you go inside a business and you get to the place where you're looking at the sales process and you're looking at the salesperson, what are you evaluating there? And what do you want to see for that person in that role? And then if you feel that they could have the right person, what do you want to see as an output from that salesperson?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And by the way, not a lot of people ask a question that deep. So if you guys are watching or listening right now, like, these are the questions you need to be asking yourself and your people. So you look at this and you say, this is where I always start things, right? I go back to, our last career, police officers. As a police officer, you do profile. Now, this is not based on race or religion or anything like that, but you profile. Like, the early 2000s, the most stolen car in the US was the Dodge Neon. Go ahead, fight me on it, right? Like, you could stick a screwdriver, you could stick a pin, you could put whatever you wanted in that ignition, turn it, and it would go, right? So when I worked graveyards, I would literally just look for Dodge Neons because there was probably a 50% chance that thing was stolen, right? The neighborhoods that I worked.
Yeah.
And sure enough, half of them would take off, it was like clockwork. I loved it. So I learned to profile on a behavior that I wanted to see, right? When it comes to running a business, I leverage behavior profiling. Now, you've probably done, a DISC assessment, Myers-Briggs, color code, one of those behavior things, in high school or in college. You're like, oh, that's so cool. I'm a high DI or I'm a green blue or whatever it is. And that's great to a point, but then you either deleted the email or you stuffed it in a folder and forgot about it, right?
Yeah.
We leverage one called the predictive index. And the reason that we do is because not only does it tell us your profile, but I can create what's called a job target. In other words, I can create the role and responsibility behavior that I want before I ever find a person for that role. So let's take a salesperson, for example. If you were to look at my behavior profile, you would say, hey, this guy would make a really good salesperson. But you wouldn't know in an interview, I could blow it or I could do really well. If you were hiring for an office manager, I'm good at talking. Thanks, Mom. I appreciate it. I'm really good at talking. So I could probably weasel my way into an office manager role. But if you're looking at the roles and responsibilities of an office manager, organized, detail-oriented, process-driven, not my strong suit, right? So it would only take, 3-4 weeks before you realized not only is Gerritt not following the thing that we want him to follow, he's actually doing his own thing. Horrible, right? But you screwed up that process. Now you got to start it over. So what we do is we kind of take that understanding and put it on the front end. So I can create a job target for an office manager based on certain behaviors that I'm looking for. I have them take a 3-minute assessment. And in those 3 minutes, I know whether it's even worth picking up the phone and having a conversation with this person or not. I could care less if you have 20 years experience. What I want to know is this a place where you want to be long-term and can have success? That's what I care about.
And so where are you getting that information from? Are you having them do the predictive index before, like, is that simultaneously they fill out their application and you want them to take that before you even try to talk to them?
Yep. 100%. It's literally, and we go back to process. It's part of the process.
Okay.
So we talk about hiring, and I'll get to a salesperson here in a second. When we talk about the process for us, the hiring process is the same. First, we create what's called the job framework. Roles, responsibilities, compensation. Like we have all those details lined up first. The next thing to do is we put it out somewhere, Indeed, Facebook, whatever you use.
Okay.
Then when the applications come in, the interest comes in, we immediately send them the assessment. And again, we've already built this job target. So I can come back and say, Susie, good, Johnny, no. And I know everybody who's at least what we call an 8 and above, right? Scale 1 to 10 and 8 and above. Those are the only people I'm going to have a conversation with, right? And now that conversation, as part of the hiring process, is not a general conversation. Tell me a time in your life where you've had to deal with adversity. What? Nobody cares. Okay. If you're hiring for a salesperson, by the way, this is the easy way to do it. Grab a pen, put it on the desk, ask them to sell you the pen.
Yeah.
If they can't sell you the pen, they're not a good salesperson and you shouldn't hire them, right? So let's assume they could sell you the pen. Okay. The next thing is the training process. And this goes back to, police days as well. Our field training program was a 5-month program. I mean, it was long, but each one had a phase. Each month had a phase, right? So phase 1, watch me do it. Phase 2, do it with me. Phase 3, now you do it. Phase 4 and 5, I'm going to just follow behind you, or you're kind of going to be on your own and doing your thing. You should know by phase 1 or 2 if the person's going to cut it or not. Why keep them around? Warren Buffett says, hire slow, fire fast. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. So now you've hired the salesperson and you ask, okay, how do you know? What should they be keeping track of? We have an Excel spreadsheet that we use. If you want to get, something expensive like Salesforce, awesome. If you want something free, I got an Excel spreadsheet for you. But inside of the Excel spreadsheet, it tracks everything that a salesperson should be doing by the day, right? Now, you might be an outbound person or you might be an inbound person, but either way, you're tracking that. You're tracking emails, you're tracking text messages, you're tracking appointments or bids or whatever you call them, and then you're tracking sales. You should know on a daily basis, minimum on a weekly basis, whether your salespeople are doing what you expect them to do or not. Period. Like salespeople left to their own device, good luck, man. It's like a cat in a hen house. Like it's chaos. But if you can bring them and organize them into a structure, you're going to get maximum effectiveness out of them.
And I would probably imagine, when you start talking about the roles and responsibilities that, unless they are the right person for, let's say, like the office manager position, most every role needs that structure. Like those people that are going to be your operations and your office manager type, they keep you and I running our business the way we're supposed to, but everyone else needs that structure in their life. Is that pretty accurate?
Dead on. I'll tell you, my life changed when I took structure from the workplace and applied it to my personal life. Right? It's like I've been married for 24 years and my marriage is where it is today simply because there's a process that I follow. Right? Every day, my wife and I go for a walk, and it ain't because I'm trying to be healthier. It's literally so we can talk. Because if you don't talk in a marriage, like it's not going to last very long. Right? Every week we go on date night. Right? Every 2 weeks, I'll buy her something special, flowers, some soap, like bath bombs, and so it's really about the process. Same thing at the gym, right? How do you get stronger at the gym? Well, you got to go to the gym regularly, right? It's the process. So it's an understanding. Some of you guys might be really good at process and structure in your personal life, but sucky in your business life. Some of you guys might be really good in your business life, but sucky in your personal life. It's the same principle. You want it to get better, apply the process.
All right. So now let's kind of circle back to when you're kind of evaluating the business owner and are there times now, I'm sure, maybe not the case when you first started out 7 years ago, but there are times now where, is there a certain core values or something that you do a checklist and you're like, this person's not going to cut it. And, it's just not really who I'm going to work with.
That's a great question. And by the way, that is something that you as a contractor should be asking on every single one of the bids that you go on. Like we call them PETA clients, right? Nobody wants a PETA client, a pain
Yeah.
in the ass, right? I don't want pain in the ass clients.
All right.
So we have our own core values, right? And they're super simple. Number one is have fun. I love to have a good time, right? Goof off a little bit, whatever, but I love to have fun. And so if I'm having a conversation with you and you're just bitching and moaning about people and things, the economy, the politics, whatever, like we're not starting off on the right foot, right? Because I want you to be able to have fun and enjoy life. The second thing is do the work, right? There's work that's got to get done. You can do it with a smile on your face, but regardless, the work's got to get done, right? The third one is do what you said you're going to do. All right. Accountability is huge in my life. My job is not to tell you what to do. My job is to get you to do the thing that you committed to doing. Call 5 people, close that $100,000 deal, sign up for the CRM, whatever the thing is. Okay. And then the last one is go the extra mile. Whether that's opening up the door for the old lady that needs to get into the grocery store, picking up the piece of trash, like always go above and beyond. Why? Because people are watching. Right? People are watching. And if you can go above and beyond with the simple things, you'll go above and beyond with the bigger things. So yeah, always, always, always there's a fit check. And I have no problem telling people, hey, look, I'm not the right guy for you. I can give you a couple of referrals to some other folks, but I'm not the right guy for you.
Some guys I don't like.
I didn't say that.
I refer you to somebody that I want you to be a pain in the ass to them. Yeah. So what would you give me a list of your top 3, like number 3 being, towards the bottom, and then to your number 1 most common, challenges, issues that you think that these business owners are facing today?
Yeah. The first one is always organization.
Okay.
Right. Like coming from a guy who spent most of his life flying by the seat of his pants, there's a little high that comes with it. Not gonna lie, but I'll tell you what I have now is structure and organization. I sleep well at night. I'm not working on the weekends. I'm not stressing out on Monday mornings, right? It's structure and organization. The second thing is accountability, right? Like you need some type of accountability in your life, whether that's an accountability group, an accountability partner, a coach. You need accountability in your life. You will get so much farther in life by somebody pushing you and poking you and pissing you off to do the thing that you need to do than you ever will trying to do it on your own. We would all love to be David Goggins. Trust me. None of us are, right? Like we need that accountability. And then the third thing, and this is, I believe, once you have that figured out in your business, is a clear understanding of the consistency needed when it comes to marketing. Like people try to put marketing first. I put marketing in the top 3, but I actually put it third because what's the point of bringing in leads if you're not doing anything with them, or worse, you don't even know what to do with them, right? Who cares? It doesn't matter. If you got the structure in the organization, if you've got the accountability, now I can tell you that you're going to have success with those leads because you know who you're targeting, you know how you're targeting them, and you know what it is that you're going to do with them.
Very well put. All right. So let's talk about the creating, where you're saying if those first 2 things are in place, the structure, organization, the accountability is in place, then you can kind of focus on the marketing, creating sales, so what is your approach there? What do you tell people? Obviously it's probably based on the sides of their business, where they currently are, where they're, hoping to get to. But is there a couple of things that you tell everyone that they should kind of focus on their marketing?
Yeah, good question. I always, again, take it back to the police days and working, SWAT, special operations and whatnot. Every time we'd go out on a mission, prior to the mission, we would have a mission brief. And as part of that mission brief, we had an operations plan. And the operations plan always identified what we were doing, right? Who was doing what on that mission, and then what the plan for execution was. And then at the end of the mission, we'd all get back together. We'll talk about what worked, what didn't work, what we're going to do better next time, right? So that process. When it comes to marketing, you need a very similar, if not the exact same process, okay? What are we going after? Because you know this, you're a marketing guy. You can have a brand awareness campaign right? Which would be like a Super Bowl ad for a Nike or a Coke or a Budweiser. If you will see a Nike commercial during the Super Bowl, you're not going to go out and buy a pair of Nikes right there.
Right.
That's not the point. The point is when you are ready to buy shoes and you're at the shoe store and you see Nikes, then you buy the Nikes, right? So it's an understanding of what marketing is, right? Getting people's attention, short-term and the long-term. So if you can identify what we call the who is it that I'm actually wanting to attract? There's a guy that my wife turned me on to. I don't even know his entire story. All I know is his probably at least 50% of his body's tattooed. And he's got a large TikTok following, but he bought a piece of land in the desert in southern Arizona and is basically like homesteading it. He had a storage container he was living out of. He built a chicken coop. Then he's going to build 2 houses. Then he has a food truck. But this guy puts out a video a day talking about the process of him building the stuff. And he averages 50 to 80,000 views per video. Some of them into the millions, right? But that's the average. Now, it's funny because he doesn't actually sell anything until he says that he's selling something or he's looking for a donation. And when that happens, he's now got the audience's attention that's willing to transact, right? So the first part of marketing is always the who. Who do I want to attract? Are you working with homeowners? You're working with contractors? You're working with investors, developers, the government? Who are you trying to attract? If you can get super clear on the who, now the game plan becomes a little more clear, right? Again, if I want to work with grandmas, I'm probably not going to be on social media because most grandmas aren't on social media.
Right.
But where are grandmas? They're at churches, they're at bingo halls, they're probably at the grocery store. Like, I got to figure out a way to get in front of them. And that's either going to be a direct in front of them, right? Go speak to the, group of grandmas that meets every Thursday for knitting, or that's going to be somebody who has access to that group of people, right? And then it's what's the game plan? Online, offline. Is it mailers? Is it, magazines? Is it partnering with somebody, sponsoring events, golf tournaments? There's so many different directions you can take marketing. And this is where somebody like you comes into play. It's like, hey, understanding who you want to work with and what you're offering them, where they are. Now you and I can work together to figure out the best way to not just get their attention, but find those buyers that are ready to buy and convert them.
Yeah, I think there's a big knowledge gap when it comes to marketing. There's so many people out there that are gurus of marketing, I guess is what they think they are. And they have such a large following and whatever they say kind of goes. But I think it's caused more confusion than anything. I hear the craziest stuff like, oh yeah, we've tried Facebook ads. They don't work. And I'm like, well then, I'm not even going to argue it there, but how about don't run Facebook ads? How about just reach every single person in your service area with some funny ass video that's got your brand attached to it, right? I mean, like you're over here saying you're going to invest into these 10 billboards, these astronomical, dollar amount when you don't have the budget to even back it up. But, you don't want to look at ways to get impressions a whole lot cheaper because someone did Facebook ads for you and you didn't get the leads you wanted. Look, whether it was set up right, you don't have the right type of business to generate Facebook leads. I don't know what it is, but I just know that more than likely, especially as a contractor, your audience is on Facebook or it's on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, right? YouTube being the second largest search engine in the world. And again, I don't care if you run, like lead forms. Like if you don't want lead generation out of it, then get your brand in front of people to the masses, right? Do connected TV. I don't really care, but something. And it's like to hear these people, the pushback that you get on some of it, it's just like, man, who told you this stuff? And how many times have you been screwed over or burned? And so the people are so jaded a lot of times, it's hard to overcome some of their objections.
Yeah, that's so true. And they do. I mean, contractors, they're trusting folks, right? But they get taken advantage of.
They do.
Right.
They do.
So yeah, you're dead on. And I think the more that a contractor can do to enlighten themselves and get knowledgeable, the easier it makes to work with somebody, right? It's like Facebook ads are scary. when you don't know who you're targeting and you don't understand how the process works, right? And then you start throwing around terms like, cost per click, cost per lead, cost per acquisition. And they're like, freaking out. Well, if you understand what it means, now you can go into a conversation with a marketer and make sure that they're not blowing smoke up your ass.
Yeah.
Right. You can make sure that you're getting the return that you need on your investment.
I mean, we just brought on a new client recently, but I mentored this guy for several weeks, and he was with a very well-known, reputable marketing company, and they did like 2.8 million last year, but he's lost half his revenue in the last 12 years. And he told me, he was paying him $7,000 a month for SEO and paid ads, and that didn't include his budget. His budget was another 5,000 or 6,000. I'm like you're doing like 1.5 and you're spending 25% on your marketing budget and you're going backwards. Like, do you not like, and then I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the marketing plan that they laid out. And he was like, well, I never got one. I'm like, so you don't have a marketing plan and they didn't provide you a marketing plan, and you're an HVAC contractor, you're seasonal, and you don't have a plan of what you're spending where. It's a set it and forget it. And I'm like, and that's why I was like, hey, look, at some point you got to look in the mirror, and I'm going to teach you some stuff now, but now you're the problem if you continue this. And that's just kind of how I'm having to be real raw and honest with people. So my staff's asking me, like, you keep lifting yourself up out of the business, because I get a little mouthy online, and they're, but I'm like, no, I want to educate these people. I want to help these people, because I'm tired of them saying I got taken advantage of. You can't get taken advantage of if you know what the right questions to ask and how to set the right KPIs and right expectations. Like, at the end of the day, you can't. You can say they did horrible work and I fired them, but you can't continue to be the victim.
Preach it.
All right. So we are towards the end of the show. Two things. First, I got rapid fire questions. I'm going to fire at you and let you just give me the answers. But first, let's talk about mindset real quick. What advice would you give to a contractor out there right now, where you pretty much said, if you don't own it, you can't fix it. And that mindset is a huge part of it. And so what would you tell someone out there right now that knows that they don't have the right mindset and wants to work on that? What advice do you give besides going to see David Coggins?
This could be a big,
he'll hurt your soul if you're a little down on yourself.
He will, but he'll also help you unlock what's really possible. Here's what I'll tell you. Super simple answer. Okay. The only way to get better at mindset's the same way to get, better at pull-ups or the bench or squats. Like, you have to go exercise that mindset. And so the easiest way to do that is go to YouTube, right? And start following people, listening to people, educating yourself on mindset, right? That's the number one thing. You can go to seminars and workshops, and I'm not going to, steer you in one particular direction. There's a lot of good people and a lot of good programs out there, but find things, right? And really, I had to do the same thing. I've gone to, Tony Robbins, Landmark International, a guy named Gerritt Bake. Like, I probably invested, it's kind of a scary number, but over $300,000 over the last, several years just on personal development. And so if you want to get a better mindset, you're going to have to work on it, right? The other thing is get a morning routine, right? I get up in the morning. My routine's super simple. It's 4 parts. Number one, it's my connection with God. And whether you believe in God or not, that's not on me, but I believe in God, right? So every morning I pray, meditate, I connect with God. Then I journal, right? There's all those thoughts swimming around in my head. I got to get them out. I write them down.
Okay.
And I go to the gym. I work on my physical body, right? I sweat, get those positive endorphins going every morning. Then I come back, shower, clean up. Then I spend some time with the family, right? I have some kids who are out of the home now, but every day I'm sending them a message of love, message of appreciation, message of gratitude, something to connect with them. And the last piece is what needs to get done today in business and how am I going to get it done? So by the time I hit what was that?
When do you do that planning?
I do that all before I hit the door.
Okay.
Right. So I don't recommend this. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's just become my routine. So by the time 6 o'clock rolls around, family's getting up, everybody's stirring everything. I'm done. I'm ready to go.
I love it.
So I can now be present with the family instead of being like, do I have to send an email? I forgot that estimate. I can be completely focused and present.
I love it. All right, Gerritt, let's shoot to rapid fire questions. You ready?
Ready.
All right. Childhood hero.
Ooh, damn! This is supposed to be rapid fire.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a rapid answer to that. I'm gonna say my grandfather.
Okay.
Didn't have a lot of TV. He was a cowboy, rough and tough and tumble, but heart of gold.
From Arizona Cowboy.
Arizona. He was also in Florida.
Okay.
So, yep.
Beach or mountains?
Beach, even though I live in the mountains.
Famous person you would invite to dinner. They could be dead or alive.
Oh man, that's a good one. I would say Jesus. That'd be a very interesting conversation.
Be a little nerve wracking. It'd be a great dinner though. If you had to make a sudden career change, what would it be?
Oh geez, I already did that.
I know.
Sudden career change. Jeez.
Yeah, wife comes home today and says, "You're done." What you got to go do something. What's it going to be?
I would be a farmer rancher.
I like it. Last one is, does Gerritt believe in aliens?
No.
No? There's nothing else out there but us?
There's nothing else out there but us.
All right. Well,
I mean, I believe in God, but I don't consider God an alien. So
yeah. Well, Gerritt, this is man, it's been super impactful. The knowledge that you delivered is absolutely amazing, and I'd love to have you back, because any guest that has that much knowledge behind them, we can craft what we'll talk about next time. But I know from the content that I've seen you drop, you are all about giving value and helping people grow. And so how does people reach you? And do you have any kind of events or anything coming up that you want to plug in?
Yeah, good question. I would say follow me on social media, and it's literally on Facebook, Instagram. It's the same, my name. So GerrittBake. You can follow me there. You'll get some free content for sure. We do have some workshops and things coming up. Although I won't talk about them quite yet, because we're literally just got the keys to our new office, and it's going to be about 30 days before we get all that together. But yeah.
We'll make sure that you get those sent over to us. We'll get them emailed out to our database, and would love to send people your way.
Awesome. Beautiful.
Well, Gerritt, I appreciate it. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thanks, my man.
Thank you.